Released on February 26, 2016 on PC, developed by Concerned Ape and published by Chucklefish, we have Stardew Valley. Inspired by existing farming simulation games like Harvest Moon / Story of Seasons, Stardew Valley's main focus is reviving and maintaining an old farm. However, the game also includes some new activities outside of farming, fishing and mining by combining the latter with fighting elements, something you would normally see in the Rune Factory series of games. For this review and Harvest Moon reviews in general, I normally only play one in-game year, but for this one I decided to play straight through to spring of year 3. In this game, your grandfather on his deathbed entrusts you, your self-insert character you made at the start of the game, with a letter to open when you've reached a point in life where you've run out of options and you feel that there's nowhere to go. You eventually reach that point while sitting inside an office cubicle for the Ghsot Corporation, and after opening and reading the letter, you found that your grandfather has left you his old farm plot in Stardew Valley. With a new lease on life, you set out for the farm to find that over the years the fields have become overgrown, ruins remain of one of the buildings, and the folks of nearby Pelican Town have to deal with Ghsot Corporation trying to establish themselves in town. With the town community centre in disrepair, it seems like it's up to you to bring life back to the old farm, choose whether the community centre gets restored to its former glory, or Ghsot Corporation move in, and befriend the townsfolk, maybe even find that special someone. But can the game step out of Harvest Moon's shadow, and is it any good? Find out in The Good. The game is just simply full of things to do, whether you're farming, fishing, mining, foraging, or even talking to the townsfolk. There's always going to be something that'll fill up your day. Even during winter when you can't really farm anything, you can focus on clearing the mine, restoring the community centre, or helping Jojo if you went down that way, or foraging and fishing for extra money. Hell, you could even spend your evenings playing video games at the saloon. Minerals obtained in mines can certainly help carry you through winter when sold in bulk, and once you have access to the desert area, the rewards reaped from there will certainly help at the cost of an increased risk. While talking to or romancing the townsfolk, you'll notice that they too have their own personal problems, and that public opinion seems divided on whether to shop at Jojo for cheaper prices, or stick with Pierre, the local shopkeeper. Another good move is the fact that while the game has 10 romanceable characters, 5 males and 5 females, you don't necessarily have to pick a love interest of the opposite gender, which makes the game appeal to a much wider audience. But I digress, no matter what you do in Stardew Valley, there's always something that needs to be done. The game does have pretty strong modding potential and the community appears to be quite active. There's been some simple mods such as changing the portraits of the characters, down to changing your pets to resemble other animals, to more technical ones like showing the selling prices when you hover your mouse over the item, and even changing the physical appearances of the characters in-game. They're easy to install and, depending on your personal preferences, may make the game that much more interesting. I also like the customization and crafting options the game has to offer. As well as a number of cosmetic items you can build for your farm, the game also has a number of craftable items that you can use to construct artisan goods, reproduce minerals, and a personal favourite, recycle trash. So those broken CDs, glasses, soggy newspapers and driftwood can now be recycled to serve a new purpose in your inventory or in one of 500,000 chests you'll be building to keep stuff in. You're not restricted to just crafting things for use on your farm. As your character progresses in levels based on the activity they're doing, you can unlock crafting recipes that can aid you in said activity. For example, once you level up enough in mining, you can construct things that can help you in the mines, such as stairs to automatically lead you to the next level down, or various bombs which you can use to blow up rocks or destroy certain enemies. To add to the customization, your character is also given a form of class choice when they reach level 5 and level 10 of a particular skill. So in the case of combat, at level 5 you can choose to do more damage or have an increased critical hit ratio. Once you reach level 10, depending on the class you picked back at level 5, you have another choice of 2 more classes to choose from. This increases the replayability factor of the game as you can experiment with a whole multitude of different choices with each playthrough. The game also has a lot of nice wee secrets hidden around the place, and while I won't show you all the ones I've found as it'll ruin the fun of discovering some of them yourself, it's clear to see that there was a lot of care in the development of the game and that it never hurts to keep a sharp eye out. The game also has a number of random events such as a meteor landing on your farm, to which casting a spell to transform one of your chicken eggs to keep things interesting. However, not everything in the game I thought was good, so from here, let's move on to the bad. Over the course of the 60 hours I invested in the game, I came across a handful of bugs. Some of them were very minor, such as my dog being called a cat, having a speech bubble appear nowhere near the doctor in the clinic, or being able to move when entering the bus to leave the desert, to name a few. But I found that there were a couple of times I was stuck in place and unable to do anything, forcing me to quit out of the game and reload it. These issues I've only noticed during festivals, and thankfully rarely happen. Kudos to Concerned Ape though for being on the ball, as I've noticed that patches to address the bugs have quickly rolled out, with one of the patch bugs punishing you for attempting to cheese your way into a certain place before you're allowed to. However, one issue that never got addressed for me though is that one of my villagers, notably one of the bachelorettes, has completely disappeared from my game altogether. As a result, despite being very far in the game, I still have the introductions quest in my journal, since that will only complete once I've met everyone. Now, I've read up about trying to find her, and yes, I've followed the suggestions and have gone to the places where she normally shows up, but I never see her there. During the winter season after 10 AM, I can enter her house to find nobody there. I've even waited in her house until the dead of night and found that she never shows up, yet once I leave, the door locks. She never appears at any festivals, and the only time I've ever seen her in my game at all was on my character's wedding day. This problem does seem to vary from person to person, as other people I've talked to playing the game have her in it. The most annoying thing I didn't like in the game was the fishing minigame. When you cast your line, if you have a fish biting it, you engage in a struggle against it. The idea of the minigame is to make sure that the green bar is on the fish at all times. While you keep the green bar on the fish, a progress bar next to the gauge will fill, and once it hits the top, you catch it. However, if the fish gets out of the green bar, then that progress bar will decrease and you lose it when it empties. Some fish are an absolute pain to catch, as they like to rapidly shoot up and down the bar. I can understand the frustration of having this for the legendary fish of the game, but certain other fishes, and for some reason the super cucumber, like to randomly shoot up and down the bar, which can frustrate players to no end. Later on in the game, you can purchase fishing rods that you can add bait and tackle, or eat foods that temporarily increase your fishing skill to make things a little bit easier. But if you find yourself put off by how annoying it is, you might not even want to bother doing that. You do need to have some proficiency in fishing if you want to complete the community centre quest, and sometimes even finding some fish will annoy you to no end, as fish have a preferred season, as well as time of day and even weather preferences. I'll admit, I did buy a couple from the travelling vendor, and I was more than happy to pay a larger sum of money to spare me the hassle. More of a personal whinge than anything, but movement speed is something to be desired. Despite the fact I'm constantly running, I don't feel that I'm getting anywhere any quicker. Sure, you can circumvent this by building a stable and riding a horse around, but I generally found that even on the horse, movement speed is a little on the slow side, even after it was made minutely faster in a patch update. I've also found that giving certain characters a gift can be a little tricky, notably Hayley, due to other interactable items in their room getting in the way. Also, converting some of my produce to artisan goods, mind you I played the game with mouse and keyboard, was also a pain, as I found myself constantly seeing a prompt to eat the item instead of putting it in the respective tool. Another thing I didn't like was the fact that large portions of my day were completed in silence as the music in game played, but once the song had finished, another one wouldn't play for a long while. I also wasn't a huge fan of the gift limit. Like Harvest Moon, Story of Seasons, Rune Factory, you can only give a character one item per day, which remains the same in Stardew Valley, but you can only give the characters 2 gifts a week, regardless of whether they like them or not. Whinging aside, I think that's all I really want to cover here, so I guess it's time for me to give out the opinion. After all that, Stardew Valley is an absolute treat to play. The game, in my opinion, has easily stepped out of Harvest Moon's shadow, and through hard work has earned its own identity. I could not recommend this game enough, and if you're a fan of the Harvest Moon, Story of Seasons, Shepherd's Crossing or Rune Factory games, you owe it to yourself to buy this game and play it. Admittedly, a lot of the stuff I covered in the bad I've been able to get over, or are temporary problems which can be addressed. There's a good replay factor for this game, and the graphics I never had a problem with either. By the time I was evaluated in the first day of the 3rd year, all my hard work paid off, and I felt a real sense of achievement in getting there. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Stardew Valley a giant golden turnip out of 10. However, since the game does not feature giant golden turnips, or well, turnips at all, we'll have to substitute it for a gold star radish out of 10. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review.